Hey, my name's Ethan Brooks. I'm 26, white guy from a small town called Willow Creek in New Hampshire. Life here's pretty straightforward. Quiet streets lined with old maple trees, folks who know your name at the grocery store, and winters that hit hard enough to make you appreciate a hot cup of coffee. I work as a janitor for the local residential complexes, mostly night shifts. It's not glamorous, scrubbing floors and emptying trash bins until the sun comes up, but it pays the bills for my little rented cabin on the edge of town near the Pine Hills. I dropped out of community college at 18, figured I'd rather earn my keep than rack up debt on classes I wasn't sure about. Since then, it's been odd jobs. Landscaping in summer, snow shoveling in winter, whatever keeps me moving. I don't mind the solitude, it's given me time to think, to watch people without getting too involved. That Friday morning was no different. I just wrapped up a long shift, my hands still smelling like industrial cleaner, my faded blue flannel shirt tucked into worn jeans. I stopped by the Oak and Pine Cafe on Main Street, the kind of place that's been around since the 70s. Wooden counters scarred from years of use, mismatched mugs hanging on hooks, and that comforting hum of low chatter mixed with the hiss of the espresso machine. It's always busy, but never rushed. Locals grabbing their fixes before heading to work or errands. I needed my usual black coffee to shake off the fatigue, something strong to keep me going until I could crash at home. The line was short, just a couple of regulars ahead. That's when I noticed her, the woman in front of me. She had silver-streaked hair that caught the morning light filtering through the cafe's foggy windows, pulled back in a loose bun that looked effortless. She was dressed simply but elegantly, a soft gray sweater over slim pants, a scarf draped around her neck like she knew exactly how to make the cold, New England air work for her. I'd seen her before a few times actually, always buying a small bag of caramel candies from the old glass jar on the counter. She moved with this quiet grace, like she belonged in a bigger city but had chosen this spot for reasons only she knew. Her name was Sophia Langford. I'd overheard the barista say it once or twice. She was 44, or so I'd guessed from snippets of conversation floating around town. Word was she'd been some big-shot interior design director in Boston, handling fancy projects for high-end clients, but she'd moved here a couple years back after a divorce. Now she did freelance work from her cozy house on the outskirts, sketching plans for local renovations or helping folks redo their living rooms. She kept to herself mostly, polite smiles and small talk, but there was something about her eyes, deep, thoughtful, like they'd seen more than most people in this sleepy place. She reached the counter, ordered her usual latte, and pointed to the caramel jar. "A small bag, please," she said, her voice smooth and warm, like aged whiskey. The barista scooped out a handful, and Sophia paid with exact change, always prepared. I stepped up next, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the exhaustion from the night shift messing with my head, or the way the light hit her hair, or just one of those random moments where you feel bold for no good reason. But as she turned to leave, I blurted out to the barista, loud enough for her to hear, "Hey, if I buy the whole jar of those caramels, would she have a cup of coffee with me?" The words hung in the air like a bad joke that wasn't meant to be one. The cafe went quiet for a split second, or at least it felt that way in my mind. The barista raised an eyebrow, chuckling awkwardly, but my eyes were on Sophia. She froze mid-step, her hand on the bag of candies, and slowly turned around. Her expression was pure surprise, eyes widening, lips parting just a fraction. I could feel the heat rushing to my face, my heart pounding like I'd just run up the Pine Hills. What the hell was I thinking? She was older, sophisticated, way out of my league. I was just the guy who cleaned up after everyone else, smelling like bleach and regret. But there was no anger in her gaze, no dismissal. Instead, a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth, softening the shock into something almost amused. The barista cleared his throat. The jar's got about $50 worth in there, Ethan. You sure?" I nodded dumbly, pulling out my wallet, but my focus was on her. Sophia tilted her head slightly, studying me like I was a puzzle she'd just noticed. The air between us felt charged, the scent of fresh coffee and caramel mixing with the faint pine from outside. People around us shifted, pretending not to listen, but I could sense the curious glances. In a town like Willow Creek, where everyone knows everyone's business, this was the kind of thing that could spark whispers by lunchtime. Then, to my utter disbelief, she spoke. "Well," she said, her voice steady but with a hint of playfulness, "if you're buying the whole jar, I suppose I'd have to ask, do you like your coffee bitter or sweet?" My mouth went dry. Bitter or sweet? It was a simple question, but it felt loaded, like she was testing if I'd back down. I swallowed hard, meeting her eyes, those deep, knowing eyes that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't been in years. "Sweet," I managed, my voice rough from the night shift. "Definitely sweet." She laughed then. A soft, genuine sound that cut through the tension like sunlight through the cafe's windows. The barista handed me the jar after I slapped down the cash, and Sophia gestured to a small table by the window. "All right, Ethan, was it? 1 cup then. But only if you tell me why the caramels." I followed her to the table, my legs feeling like lead, the jar heavy in my hands. As we sat down, the morning light spilling over us, I realized this wasn't just a whim. There was something about her poise, her quiet strength, that had pulled those words out of me. And now, with the cafe buzzing around us, I was about to find out if it was the start of something or the end of my dignity. We sat down at that small table by the window, the jar of caramels between us like some awkward trophy I'd just won. The cafe's morning buzz picked up again, clinking mugs, the low murmur of conversations, the barista calling out orders, but it all felt distant, like we were in our own little bubble. Sophia slid into the chair across from me, setting her latte down with that same graceful ease I'd noticed earlier. I placed my black coffee next to it, suddenly hyper-aware of how rough my hands looked against the smooth wooden tabletop, calluses from scrubbing floors all night. "So," she said, unwrapping one of the caramels from her bag and popping it into her mouth, "why the caramels? You don't strike me as the type to impulse buy a whole jar just for a conversation." I chuckled, rubbing the back of my neck, feeling the flush from earlier still lingering. "Honestly, I don't know. I've seen you in here a few times, always getting those. Figured it was a safe bet. Better than asking for your number outright, I guess." I took a sip of my coffee, the bitterness hitting hard, grounding me. "I'm Ethan, by the way, Ethan Brooks." "Sophia Langford," she replied, extending her hand. Her grip was firm but warm, no hesitation. And for the record, that was bold. Most people in this town just nod and keep walking. We shook hands, and I let go a second too late, or maybe she did. Either way, it lingered. She leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs, and looked out the window where the autumn leaves were starting to turn on the maples lining Main Street. "So, Ethan, what do you do when you're not buying out candy supplies?" I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Janitor work mostly. Night shifts at the apartment complexes around town. Keeps me busy, pays the rent on my place out by the pines. Nothing exciting, scrubbing, mopping, fixing little things that break. Been doing it since I was 18 after I dropped out of college. Figured real life was calling louder than textbooks." She nodded, no judgment in her eyes, just genuine interest. "Sounds honest. Not everyone can say that about their job." She stirred her latte slowly, the foam swirling. "Me? I used to run a design firm in Boston, interior spaces for offices, high-end homes, the kind where everything had to be perfect down to the last throw pillow. But after some changes, I packed up and moved here. Now I do freelance gigs, helping locals redo their kitchens or offices. It's quieter, but I like it. Gives me time to breathe." "Changes?" I asked, not pushing too hard, but curious. She seemed like someone who'd lived a bigger life than Willow Creek offered. She paused, her fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "Divorce, mostly. 10 years married, thought it was solid. But turns out a fancy apartment in the city doesn't keep things warm when the conversations run cold. He wanted the fast life. Networking events, late nights at the office. I wanted, I don't know, something real. So I left it all behind, came here to start over. Learn how to live without the noise." Her voice was steady, but there was a hint of something deeper, like old scars she didn't bother hiding anymore. I listened, really listened, not just nodding like I do with most people. "That takes guts," I said. "Leaving everything. Most folks here stick to what they know, even if it's breaking them." She smiled faintly, unwrapping another caramel and offering me one. I took it, the sweetness melting on my tongue, a nice contrast to my bitter coffee. "What about you? Why drop out?" You seem like the type who could handle more than night shifts. I leaned forward, elbows on the table. College felt like a trap. My folks pushed it. Dad's a mechanic, mom's a teacher. They wanted better for me. But sitting in lectures, borrowing money I'd never pay back, it didn't fit. I like working with my hands, seeing the before and after. Like I can scrub a floor until it shines, wipe away the day's mess without breaking what's left behind. It's simple, but it's mine. She tilted her head, her silver hair catching the light again. Sounds like someone who's good at cleaning up more than just floors. Maybe hearts too? Or am I reading too much into it? I felt a pull in my chest, like she'd seen right through me. Hearts? Nah, I'm no expert there. Been single for a while. Couple dates here and there, but nothing sticks. People my age want parties, big plans. Me? I'm happy with quiet nights, maybe a walk in the pines. But yeah, I've cleaned up my own messes. Lost a friend young, car accident. Taught me to appreciate the small stuff, not chase what isn't real. Sophia set her cup down, her eyes meeting mine fully for the first time. Quiet nights sound nice. After the divorce, I tried the city dating scene. Apps, setups from friends, all surface. No one wants to hear about the nights you spend staring at blank walls, wondering if you'll ever feel settled again. But here, it's different, slower. I'm learning to like the silence, but sometimes it echoes. We talked like that for what felt like hours, though it was probably just one. She shared more about her designs, how she'd sketch rooms that felt like home, even if her own life hadn't. I told her about the hills, how I'd hike them after shifts to clear my head, watching the fog roll in over the valleys. There was no rush, no awkward silences, just easy flow, like we'd skip the small talk and jump straight to the real stuff. The age difference hung there, unspoken. Her with her polished stories from Boston, me with my gritty tales from Willow Creek, but it didn't feel like a wall. If anything, it made the connection sharper, like we were filling in each other's gaps. As the cafe started to empty out for the lunch crowd, she glanced at her watch. I should get back to work, a client's waiting on sketches. She stood, but paused. This was unexpected, in a good way. Yeah, I agreed, standing too, the empty caramel jar in my hand like a reminder of my impulsiveness. Me too. Maybe we could do it again? Coffee, no jar required. She laughed softly. Sweet or bitter? Sweet, I said, grinning. Definitely sweet. We exchanged numbers, simple as that. No fanfare. As she walked out, the bell above the door jingling, I sat back down for a minute, staring at my half-empty cup. What had just happened? I'd come in for coffee, left with a conversation that felt like it could change things. Sophia wasn't just some woman from the line. She was someone who'd seen life, and for some reason, she'd let me in. The town outside bustled on, unaware. But inside me, something had shifted, and I wondered if this was the start of cleaning up more than just floors. After that first coffee, things shifted in ways I hadn't expected. Sophia and I started texting. Nothing heavy at first, just casual check-ins. How's the shift? She'd ask late at night. Or I'd send her a photo of the Pine Hills after a hike saying, quiet like we talked about. It felt easy, natural, like we'd skipped the awkward getting-to-know-you phase. A few days later, we met up again at the Oak and Pine, same table by the window. She brought sketches from her latest project, a cozy redesign for a local bookstore, and I listened, genuinely interested, asking questions that made her eyes light up. You get it, she said once. Most people just nod. I felt seen too in a way that was new. But Willow Creek is small, and word travels faster than the fog rolling in from the valleys. It started with glances. The next time we were at the cafe together, I noticed the barista lingering a bit longer when he refilled our cups, his eyes flicking between us. A couple of regulars at the counter whispered something, and one laughed a little too loud. I brushed it off, maybe paranoia from the night shifts. But by the end of the week, it was clear the rumors had begun. I overheard it first at work while mopping the lobby of one of the apartment buildings. Two tenants, older women chatting by the mailboxes. Did you hear about Sophia Langford, the designer from Boston? She's been seen with that young janitor kid. What is she thinking? He's half her age. They didn't notice me around the corner, but the words hit like a splash of cold cleaner. Half her age? It wasn't exactly true. I was 26, she was 44, but close enough to sting. I kept my head down, finished the job, but my mind raced. Was this what people saw? Some scandal? The town buzzed with it. Willow Creek thrives on that kind of talk. Everyone's connected, from the post office to the diner. By Monday, it had escalated. I stopped by the hardware store for some supplies, and the clerk, an old guy named Hank who'd known my folks forever, gave me a knowing grin. Heard you're keeping busy these days, Ethan? That Langford woman? She's a catch, but watch yourself. Folks are talking. I forced a laugh, mumbled something about just coffee, but inside it churned. Sophia texted me that afternoon. Ran into Mrs. Ellis at the market. She asked if I was mentoring a young local. Subtle, huh? I replied with a joke, but we both knew it wasn't funny. The age gap, the differences, her polished past in Boston, my gritty nights scrubbing toilets, it all fed the gossip mill. Then came the direct hit. It was at the cafe, of course, where it all started. We were sitting there midweek, sharing a quiet laugh over one of her old design horror stories, a client who insisted on neon pink walls in a funeral home, when a man approached our table. He was in his 50s, salt and pepper hair, dressed in a crisp button-down like he was still commuting to the city. I didn't know him, but Sophia's face tightened the second she saw him. Sophia, he said, voice dripping with fake warmth. Long time. Didn't expect to see you here. Like this? He glanced at me, then back to her. Downsizing, are we? From boardrooms to this? He gestured vaguely at me like I was some piece of furniture she'd picked up cheap. She straightened, her composure cracking just a hair. Mark? She said coolly. Nice to see you too. Still friends with my ex, I take it? He smirked. Just passing through town, heard you were entertaining yourself. Didn't think it'd be with the help. The words landed like a punch. I felt my fists clench under the table, but Sophia shot me a look. Don't. She smiled thinly. Well, some of us prefer real conversations over empty suits. Enjoy your visit. He walked off chuckling, but the damage was done. The cafe felt smaller, eyes on us. We finished our drinks in silence, the easy flow gone. That night, she called. I'm sorry about Mark. He's an old colleague, always was a snob. Her voice was steady, but I heard the strain. It's not just him. The whole town's whispering. Sophia and the janitor boy. Like I'm some cougar and you're, I don't know. I paced my cabin, the pine scent from outside seeping in. Let them talk, it's just coffee. But she sighed. It's more than that now, Ethan, and you know it. But this town, it's small. I came here to escape judgment, not invite more. We hung up and I stared at the empty caramel jar on my counter, wondering if I'd pushed too far with that impulsive question. The next day, we had plans to meet again. Same time, same table. I got there early, ordered our drinks, sat waiting. 15 minutes passed, then 30. An hour, no text, no call. The barista gave me a sympathetic look as he cleared tables. She didn't show? I shook my head, heart sinking. Had the rumors gotten to her? The age thing? Or was it me, too young, too simple? I left, the coffee's cold, walking back to my truck with a knot in my gut. That evening, I stopped by the cafe after close, slipping a note under the door by the empty caramel jar. I won't buy more candies, but I'll keep the seat by the window open if you want to come back. It was simple, no begging, just honest. But as I drove home through the darkening pines, doubt crept in. Maybe this was the end before it really began. The town had spoken, and she'd listened. The days after Sophia didn't show blurred into a routine haze, night shifts dragging longer, the pine hills feeling emptier on my hikes. I replayed our conversations in my head, wondering if the town's whispers had scared her off for good. That note I'd left by the caramel jar felt like a long shot, a quiet plea I wasn't sure she'd even see. But I kept going back to the cafe, ordering my black coffee, glancing at the empty seat by the window like it was waiting for something. The barista stopped asking after a while. He just nodded sympathetically. Hank at the hardware store cracked another joke once. Still chasing that designer lady? But I shrugged it off. Inside, though, it gnawed at me. Was I just the janitor kid to her now, like Mark had said? Or had we really connected, age and all? It was a late afternoon, the kind where the New Hampshire sky turns a soft gray before dusk, when she finally appeared. I was at the cafe again, nursing a cold cup at our table. No, my table now, staring out at the falling leaves. The bell jingled, and there she was. Sophia, stepping in with her scarf wrapped tight, an oversized wool coat hanging long over her boots. Her silver hair was loose, framing her face, and she carried a flat package wrapped in brown paper under her arm. Our eyes met immediately, and something in me unclenched. She didn't look angry or distant, just resolute, like she'd made a decision after wrestling with it. "Ethan," she said, approaching the table. Her voice was soft but steady, cutting through the low hum of the cafe. "Mind if I join you?" I stood halfway, gesturing to the empty chair. "It's been waiting." She sat, placing the package on the table carefully, like it was fragile. Up close, I could see the faint lines of worry around her eyes, but also a spark of determination. "I'm sorry about the other day," she started, unwrapping her scarf. "Mark, the rumors, it all hit at once. I needed space to think." I nodded, my coffee forgotten. "I get it. Small town, big mouths. Didn't expect you to come back, honestly." She smiled faintly, her fingers tracing the edge of the package. "I almost didn't. But then I saw your note by the jar. It stuck with me, keeping the seat open. No pressure, just possibility." She paused, glancing around the cafe where a few locals pretended not to notice us. "This place, this town, it's my fresh start. After the divorce, I didn't want complications. And you? You're a complication, Ethan. Younger, different world. People talk." "Yeah," I admitted, leaning forward. "They do. Heard it all week. The janitor and the city lady. Like we're some soap opera." I met her gaze. "But it's not about them. It's about that first coffee, the talks. If it's too much, I get it. But I meant what I said in the note." She looked down at the package, then pushed it toward me. "For you. Open it." I unwrapped the brown paper carefully, revealing a stack of sketches, pencil lines on thick paper, some faded, others crisp. They were designs, a cozy community space with bookshelves lining the walls, soft chairs clustered around low tables, a corner for tea with mismatched mugs, and right there, by a sketched window, an empty chair waiting. It wasn't fancy, no neon or high-end flair, but it felt warm, inviting, like a place where people could just be. "These are old drafts," she explained, her voice softening. "Things I drew back in Boston but never used. Tossed them aside because they weren't marketable. Too simple, too real. But after our talks, I pulled them out. See that chair by the window? It's like the one here. Empty, but ready." I flipped through them, tracing the lines with my finger. "This is incredible. You made this because of me?" "Not just you," she said, but her eyes said otherwise. "You talked about cleaning up messes without breaking what's left. These sketches, they're my messes? Ideas I let go because life got complicated. But sitting with you, hearing how you see the world, it reminded me that some things are worth keeping, even if they're not perfect, not labeled success or acceptable." Her words hung there, mirroring what I'd felt since that first bold question. I set the sketches down, looking at her fully, the silver in her hair, the quiet strength in her posture. "Sophia, that means a lot. More than you know. But what about us? That complication you mentioned. You ready to keep something like this? Us? Even if it doesn't come with a label, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. Just real." She reached across the table, her hand brushing mine lightly, sending a warmth up my arm. "I've been thinking about that. The age thing, people see it as a gap, but maybe it's a bridge. You've got this grounded way about you, Ethan, no pretense. After years in Boston, chasing perfect designs, and a marriage that looked good on paper but felt empty. I need that. Real. But I'm scared. The whispers, the judgments, they remind me of why I left the city. What if this blows up?" I squeezed her hand gently, not letting go. "I'm scared too. I'm the guy mopping floors at 3 a.m., not some executive. But that first day buying that jar, it wasn't just impulse. It was because I saw you, really saw you, and wanted to know more. If the town talks, let them. We don't have to shout it. We can just be. Keep the seat open for each other." She pulled back slightly, but not to withdraw. To think. Her eyes searched mine, and I could see the walls she'd built after her divorce cracking just a bit. You're wiser than you give yourself credit for. All right, let's try. No labels, no rush. Just coffee, talks, and maybe more sketches. We sat there longer, the cafe emptying as the afternoon faded. She showed me details in the drawings, how the space could be a haven for locals, a place to escape the cold winters. I shared ideas from my hikes, how the pines taught me patience. By the time we left, the fear from the rumors felt smaller, replaced by something tentative but real. As we stepped out into the crisp air, she slipped her arm through mine for a moment. Tomorrow? She asked. Tomorrow, I said. And for the first time since the whispers started, I didn't care who saw. A month had passed since that afternoon Sophia handed me the sketches, and everything felt different, subtle, but real. We didn't rush into anything dramatic. No big declarations, no public announcements. Just quiet steps forward, like the way the pines shed their needles in the fall, slow, inevitable. We met at the Oak and Pine Cafe most mornings, same table by the window. Sometimes we'd talk for an hour, sometimes longer. Other days we'd just sit in comfortable silence, sipping coffee while she sketched and I read the local paper. The rumors hadn't vanished entirely, but they faded, like old paint on the town's buildings. People still glanced, but no one confronted us again. Willow Creek moved on, as small towns do. The real change came when we started turning one of her sketches into something tangible. The cafe had a small back room, unused storage for years, dusty shelves, and cracked linoleum. The owner, a gruff guy named Tom who'd known my folks, let us use it for free after Sophia charmed him with a quick redesign idea for his front counter. No rent, he said, but keep it clean. We did more than that. We painted the walls a soft cream, installed simple wooden shelves for books people could borrow, added mismatched chairs from thrift stores. In the corner, we built a low table for tea, nothing fancy, just a kettle, mugs, and a tin of loose leaf. And right by the window that looked out on the maple trees, we placed the chair from her sketch. A sturdy oak piece with a worn seat, the kind that felt like it had stories of its own. It became a quiet haven. Locals started drifting in, old Mrs. Ellis with her knitting, the high school kids after practice, even Hank from the hardware store with his thermos. No one charged for anything. It was just a place to sit, breathe, escape the winter chill. Sophia called it the corner. Simple, no logos, no rules. I helped with the heavy lifting, sanding the shelves, fixing the wobbly table legs. She handled the details, the cushions, the plants on the sill, the way the light fell just right. We worked side by side, laughing when paint splattered on my jeans or when she accidentally knocked over a stack of books. You're good at this, she said one evening, wiping her hands on a rag. Seeing what needs fixing. I shrugged, setting down a toolbox. Comes with the job. Floors, hearts, same thing. You just keep at it until it's right. She looked at me then, really looked. And I felt that pull again. The one that started with a jar of caramels and a bold question. You're right, she said quietly. And this us feels right, even if it's not what anyone expected. We didn't move in together. She still had her house on the edge of town, the one with the big windows and her old drafting table. I kept my cabin by the pines with its creaky porch and wood stove, but we spent more time in each other's spaces. She'd come over after a long day of freelance work. We'd cook something simple, pasta with whatever was in the fridge, and talk until the fire died down. Or I'd drive to her place on weekends, help with small repairs, and we'd sit on her porch watching the leaves fall. The age difference didn't feel like a gap anymore. It was just part of the landscape. She had stories from Boston, from a life I'd never lived. I had the quiet of the hills, the rhythm of night shifts. We fit together in the in-between. One morning, about a month after we'd finished the corner, we were at our usual table in the cafe. The caramel jar was still there on the counter, half full now. No one buying the whole thing anymore. Sophia sipped her tea, glancing at the back room where a couple of regulars were already settled with books. Look at this, she said softly. We built something. I reached across the table, my hand finding hers. Yeah, and it's not just the room. I nodded toward the chair by the window, the one from her sketch, now real, with a faint scratch on the arm from where I'd sanded it too hard. That chair. It was empty in the drawing, now it's not. She smiled, the kind that reached her eyes. You don't need to buy the whole jar anymore, she said, squeezing my hand. I laughed quietly. I just need to know, you're still sitting here. Then I have a reason to wake up early. She leaned in, her silver hair brushing my shoulder. I'm here, Ethan, and I'm not going anywhere. We sat like that as the cafe filled up, the morning light spilling over us. The town moved on around us, people coming and going, whispers fading to nothing. Sophia and I weren't perfect. We argued sometimes about little things like whether to add more books or how late to stay up talking. The age thing still popped up in quiet moments when she'd wonder if I was missing out on someone younger, or I'd worry I couldn't keep up with her world. But we talked it through, no rushing, no forcing. We chose each other every day in the small ways, a text at the end of my shift, a sketch she left on my counter, a walk in the pines when the snow started falling. The corner became a place where people could just be quiet, warm, no expectations. And in a way, so did we. Not labeled, not announced, just real. And sometimes that's enough to fix what you thought was broken. Not with grand gestures, but with time, patience, and a chair by the window that finally had someone sitting in it.